Well, this month marks the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Black Panther Party. We're spending the hour focusing on an overlooked part of its legacy, political prisoners in the United States who are former Black Panther members. Perhaps the most famous of them is Mumia Abu-Jamal, who has regularly been interviewed on Democracy Now! As an award-winning journalist. There are many others. In fact, 2 former Black Panthers have already died in prison this year. Abdul Majid in New York and Mando Welanga in Nebraska. In a web-exclusive feature on democracynow.org, we describe other Panthers who remain locked up. They include Romaine Chip Fitzgerald, who was convicted in 1969 of attempted murder of a police officer during a traffic stop shootout in which he himself was shot in the head but survived, as well as the murder of a security guard in a separate case based on flimsy evidence. It was the same year the FBI's J. Edgar Hoover declared, quote, "The Black Panther Party represents the greatest threat to internal security of the country." Fitzgerald has since suffered a stroke while in prison. Despite his medical condition, he's been repeatedly denied parole, despite California's push to release people over age 65 who have served more than 25 years of their sentence.
For more, we're joined now by 4 former Black Panther Party members who became political prisoners, lived through similar ordeals. All but 3 of them were released from prison in the last 3 years. Here in New York, in his first global broadcast interview, we're joined by Sequoia Dinga, who helped build the Black Panther Party in New York City. He was later involved in the Black Liberation Army. He was convicted in 1984 of charges related to his alleged involvement in the escape of Assata Shakur from prison and a Brinks armored car robbery. After serving 33 years in state and federal prison, he was released in November of 2014. In Baltimore, Eddie Conway joins us, former Black Panther leader in Baltimore who was released from prison in March 2014 after serving 44 years for a murder of a police officer. He always maintained his innocence, saying he was set up. We first spoke to Eddie Conway less than 24 hours after his release from prison. And we are joined from Austin by 2 former members of the Angola 3 who formed one of the first Black Panther chapters in a prison. Robert King spent 32 years in Angola, 29 of them in solitary confinement, released in 2001 after his conviction was overturned. With him is Albert Woodfox. Until February of this year, Woodfox was the longest-standing solitary confinement prisoner in the United States. He was held in isolation in a 6-by-9-foot cell almost continuously for 43 years at the Louisiana State Penitentiary known as Angola. He was released on his 69th birthday. We spoke with him 2 days later, and I asked him at the time how it felt to be free.
Being released in society, I'm having to learn different techniques, you know, of how to, I'm just trying to learn how to be free. I've been locked up so long, and a prison within a prison. So for me, it's just about learning how to live as a free person and just take my time. Right now, the world is just speeding so fast for me, and I have to find a way to just slow it down.
Albert Woodfox speaking on Democracy Now! Last February, just days after his release. We welcome him and all of you to Democracy Now! I want to begin in Austin with Robert King and Albert Woodfox. You just came from Oakland, California, where you were at the 50th anniversary discussions, celebration of the founding of the Black Panther Party. How did it feel, Robert King?
It was, thank you, ma'am. It was great. That commemoration of the 50th anniversary, it marks I think a turning point in our approach to, and you stated, dealing with political prisoners who have been left behind. We focused on a lot of things, but the main focus was, in my opinion, was focusing on the political prisoners. While everything else was important, and most likely we'll get to that, but the political prisoners aspect was the point that caught our attention, that catches our attention at this point in time, because we're at crunch time with regards to our political prisoners, and I think we need to focus on political prisoners. I mean, and we have to go across the board. We have to devise the language to validate, you know, our contention and our the approach that we have in trying to rid these gulags of our political prisoners and political victims as well, which is another story.
And Albert Woodfox, the whole idea of starting chapters of the Panthers in prison, which happened across the country and many people are not aware of, what initially inspired you to do that, and your sense of comradeship when you went to this conference with people who have been on the outside as well?
Well, for me, the horrible conditions, the brutality, and the constant murdering and raping with young inmates necessitated that something be done. Since I had joined the Black Panther Party while in prison, I felt as though the best way to address these horrible conditions was by forming a chapter along with Herman Wallace and Robert King to combat these horrible conditions. Newly joining the Panther while in prison, I knew no other way other than to uphold the principles and the values of the Black Panther Party to do this.
You know.
And what was the reaction of the prison officials to your attempt to organize inside?
Well, at the time, I think we lasted as long as we did. We were as successful as we were because they had an internal struggle going on in Angola between what's called the old families that go back generations. And I think the Secretary Lang Hunt, the DOC Secretary Lang Hunt, who I think was the first female secretary they had ever had brought in personnel from outside, the warden, Murray Henderson, and he in turn brought in people from outside. And so given this internal struggle between the old families and the personnel brought from outside of Louisiana, and their concentration was on that rather than on the organizing that myself and Herman Wallace and Robert Wilkerson was participating in, in the prison population.
Albert Woodfox, we played the clip of you right after you got out of prison, and then we came down to New Orleans and saw you, met you. It's almost a year since you've been out. How are you doing now? You are the person held in solitary confinement longer than anyone in U.S. history for over 43 years.
Well, I'm doing well. I'm constantly adjusting to being a free man after such a lengthy time being in prison. I'm enjoying the comradeship of former Black Panther Party's members, and as well as being embraced by my community, my family. And the one thing I have learned is that living free is a constant adjustment. So I don't know if I will ever stop adjusting to how society constantly changing.